Kia ora koutou katoa, and welcome to the New Zealand Football Performance and Prevention AIMS Games 2022 Prepare, Participate, Recover, Repeat presentation. Before we get started, I'd like to remind us all of Sport New Zealand and New Zealand Football's Balance is Better philosophy, and it is centred around ensuring that all young people, regardless of their ability, have a quality experience playing sport. We want young people to stay in sport and realise their potential and not to be turned off before they get the chance. An important enabler of this is all of you, as coaches. We want our young people to enjoy the games and have an experience of a lifetime whilst participating in both football and futsal at AIMS Games 2022. To find out more information on Balance is Better and to gain some further insight into how anyone, such as a coach, parent, administrator, etc., can play a part to ensure that our young people are active and in the game for longer, please visit the Balance is Better website. They have some great resources and further education not only for AIMS Games but beyond within other sporting environments. Today our objective is to provide you with some key bits of information which are both practical in nature and that you can implement immediately for your team in the lead up and during AIMS Games 2022. In order to have fun and remain injury free, we want to think about prepare, participate and recover. So let's have a look at how we can do this. In preparing for AIMS, we want to look at three key considerations: knowing your players, nutrition and hydration, and warming up. Getting to know your players. Player profiling is a great coaching tool to develop an overview of a player both as an individual and as a sports person. As a bare minimum, you should have personal details that include emergency contact information, general health, illness, and allergies. In addition to the information listed there, a player profile can be as basic or as detailed as required and should be undertaken ideally at the start of each season, and in this case prior to tournament, in order to begin with a good level of knowledge of each of your players. You'll find the template displayed on screen in the link below. Nutrition. The diet of an athletic tournament should be as balanced as possible. However, we understand with a team that it can be quite difficult, and therefore having a good plan is something that you definitely want to consider as a coach, manager or parent. Have thoughts around what a simple daily schedule to weekly schedule might look like and include snacks in that plan as well. In addition, consider what your players are used to eating, as sometimes trying new foods on tournaments and or game days can possibly lead to stomach upsets. What we'll do is we'll follow this up with a breakdown of what you may or may not want to include in your plan. However, it is not limited to or restricted to what we recommend. Here is a very basic template of a nutritional timeline that you can look to use to help plan your day and your week. This is very generic and it should be used as a guideline to help you through your process. We are aware that there will be several constraints that are different to what the scenario entails, such as travel, catering options, and shopping, etc. Hydration will additionally be covered in the next section. However, we will focus more on the nutrition component and what we want to look towards at each step. So looking at 9 AM, 3 hours prior to the game, at accommodation we're generally looking to have breakfast at this time. Breakfast should be a large carbohydrate meal along with some fluid such as a glass of water. 1.5 hours to 1 hour prior to the game we want to have a carbohydrate top-up such as a banana and again a top-up of fluids. Another piece of fruit is perfectly acceptable at this time as well. 20 minutes prior, we're looking at warming up our team. At this point, no more food consumption, however hydration is acceptable. During the game, we are hydrating with fluids, and at half time there may be a carbohydrate or a small snack involved. At full time, we are hydrating and we are ingesting fuel. Now, what this looks like is carbohydrate mixed with protein intake. Protein intake should take priority at this phase. However, if you notice the time that we've allocated here, which is 12:50, you may look towards having lunch at this period, in which case protein will already be included in general with the carbohydrate. From there, 30 minutes to 2 hours prior to building up to the next game, or as your downtime, you may want to consider small top-ups in this period. However, that is not necessary if they are not hungry. And moving into 2:15, 1 hour 45 minutes prior, that is when we're looking at another top-up of carbohydrate and then getting into the warm-up again, preparing for the next game, and it repeats. So that is a very basic guideline of a nutrition throughout the game day. And as you see there in the evening, that is when you will have your dinner, and dinner should be, again, a large carbohydrate meal. So hopefully that provides you a very brief guide of what you might want to consider when you're planning your timeline and the nutrient components included. Hydration. Maintaining hydration is really important for performance, and all players should have their water bottles on them at all times. Something to consider is the game length, the size of the pitch that they're playing on, and the time of day that you will be playing, as that will all change the level of hydration required. As a general guide, you can try following: prehydrating with 2 to 500 ml of water 60 to 90 minutes prior to games, drinking 2 to 500 ml of water during the warm-up, sipping on 150 to 300 ml during the game, drinking 2 to 500 ml during the cool-down, then refilling the bottle and drinking another 1 to 1.5 litres of water within the next 2 hours post the game. Now, this can also be done at training, and we recommend that you do try this out at training if you are going to implement a strategy like this. Something to bear in mind is that each individual varies in their level of need of hydration. So if we're talking about prehydration, some players may only need 200 ml, whilst others may require the full 500. It will impact individuals differently, so it is something just to keep in mind and try out prior to tournament. Our next step in preparation is having a good warm-up process. And if you're involved in football, this applies to you, and there's a section later on in regards to futsal. Now, if you hadn't heard of it before, the 11 Plus is a football-specific warm-up program that focuses on preparing players for both trainings and games. And it does this by improving and enhancing movement competency, fitness, and the physical ability of players. In addition, it has a strength and conditioning component that strengthens and develops key musculature, in particular the legs and core. So if I was to ask you, do you want faster players? Do you want more agile players? Do you want stronger players? Or even if you were to ask the players themselves, we're pretty confident you would all say yes. So what does this mean for you? Not only will you have fitter, faster and stronger players, but you will also have a possible 37% reduction of training injuries, 29% less game-related injuries, and a 50% reduction of severe injuries. So for AIMS games, you will have more players at trainings, more players available for the duration of AIMS games, and in turn, hopefully all the players get to have fun. The 11 Plus contains 3 parts: Parts 1, Part 2, and Part 3. Parts 1 and 3 are the running exercises and should be performed both trainings and games, whilst Part 2 should only be performed on training days. Technique in all of these exercises is paramount to success. If you're not familiar with the 11 Plus, or you need a refresher on the 11 Plus, I encourage you to watch the videos provided in the description below. Pay attention to the technique tips and consider using them as cues for your team. Futsal Fast Start. Futsal Fast Start is a warm-up program designed specifically for futsal in New Zealand. It prepares players for both trainings and games, and has been shown to reduce the risk of injuries in futsal. It can also be completed with very limited space and in a short amount of time. Check out the description below for a full video that will guide you through the Futsal Fast Start program, as well as providing you with lots of technique tips on how to perform the Futsal Fast Start. Understanding the benefits of warming up. Have a go at this exercise and fill in the blanks with the words listed on screen. Pause this video now, or work through this in the next 5 seconds with me. What you should have is warming up increases your heart rate and therefore blood flow, which enables more oxygen to reach your muscles. A warm-up also activates and primes the connections between your tendons and muscles, which improves the efficiency of movement. A good warm-up should increase your body temperature, gradually increase in intensity, whilst using muscles and joints through a full range of motion. If you got that right, well done. Despite the competitive nature of traditional taunt, we should be mindful of the nature of AIMS Games 2022. Expectations and reality World Cup or local derby. What is it that your players actually want to achieve? As coaches, we may have our own expectations and our own philosophy. But understanding the environment that we're in, consider the nature of the age group that we are coaching and the potential impact that this can have on players. Do the players acknowledge this? And does the team acknowledge this as a whole? To be clear, we're not saying that the competitive nature of a game should be ignored. However, we just want to consider the environment that you're in and what we instill in the young individuals. Asking the players actually what they love about football or futsal is a great question, as the answer might actually surprise you. For some, it may not actually be about the result, in which case understanding participation is key. What participation means and is not limited to, but focusing on effort and improvement with an emphasis on getting better. In this, we accept that the mistakes are inevitable, but recognise the effort that goes into it. In addition, it's that everyone matters regardless of their ability, and there is a sense of belonging with support given and grown. The kids are also given the opportunity to make mistakes and correct their own mistakes. And that's really key, because has anyone ever had a perfect game? Remember, mistakes can help their learning. We move on to recovery now, and we want to maximise our time, and it begins with a cool down. Now you see the cool down routine is on screen, and feel free to use this very basic routine. However, cool down is generally just some light mobility exercises, as it's an opportunity to gradually decrease the intensity of movements and bring the body temperature and blood flow down. However, it's actually much more than that. It's actually also a really great opportunity for you to check in with your players and connect and understand any potential concerns that you may need to address and follow up, or any adjustments that you might need to make. The next part of recovery is hydration and nutrition. Now, we touched on nutrition and hydration before, so post-game it should be 1 to 1.5 litres of fluid following the next 2 hours. However, sometimes that might not be possible, so just small top-ups should be enough to carry them through due to the nature of AIMS Games. Now, I mentioned earlier again that there should be some snacks considered in the nutrition plan, and those snacks should be consumed during the cooldown or after the cooldown immediately following the game. To give you a better guide of the timeline, we're going to have a look at how we can break that down. Downtime. Now, it can be very exciting being away from home at tournament with your friends and playing a sport we all love. However, the kids do need to take advantage of this downtime. And it can be very tempting to want to fill the day with lots of activities, and we need to consider whether those activities are physical or non-physical. So consider board games and cards and other activities that the team can play while sitting down or off their feet, and try to have them resist the urge to run around playing when they should be resting, as the majority will be spending their time on their feet during the games. Now, you could be thinking, what about going to the pool or to the beach? Those two are absolutely fine and are fantastic options as activities that can also assist in their recovery. Sleep. Sleep is one of the most important tools for recovery, so managing devices and screen time is crucial. Try and eliminate electronic devices 1 hour prior to going to sleep, and in most cases, players will need roughly 9 hours of sleep. So make sure the meal times are organised as much as possible so that they are getting plenty of it. We understand that there may be barriers in place, but maximising the amount of time that they can have sleeping is crucial. This brings us to our last slide. Now, injuries is not part of the initial prepare, participate and recover, but it is something that we do want to be aware of. Now, in general, we do not recommend going on tournament and or practicing whilst injured unless they're following the advice of a professional. There are risks if players do continue to play whilst injured, and they are at risk of both re-injury and injury itself. Now, we understand that injuries are part of the game, and if ensuring that you have someone that is first aid certified is important. In the acute injury management, ensure that you have your own team's first aid kit and don't rely on the venue. This is just because the number of participants may mean that what you require is not necessarily readily available to you. In the event that you are unsure, follow the RICE principle, and looking further down to the diagnosis side, have an emergency plan and understand where the nearest medical centre is in both relation to the venue and your accommodation. This just helps you assist in any emergency that may be unforeseen. Well, that brings us to the end of the New Zealand Football Performance and Prevention presentation for AIMS Games 2022. Prepare, participate, recover and repeat. I'd like to thank you all for joining me, and hopefully you took some little bits of information away and you are able to implement them if not implementing them already. Now, if you do require any more information, please do have a look at the links included in the description below. However, from the team at New Zealand Football, we wish you all the very best at AIMS Games 2022. Ka kite anō.